Welcome to Critical Political History, where we talk about critical political history. There are certain people in history that are cherished and loved for the positive impacts they brought upon our world. Then there are those that are cherished even though they brought about certain evils. While there are still some that worship people like Stalin, Mao, or Hitler, we can write those folks off as racists or retards. I know you aren't supposed to use that word anymore, but if you worship people with up to 60 million and 100 million kill counts respectively, sorry, but you're a retard. However, there is one evil figure in history that is cherished by normal people, people like you and I, people that are victims of misinformation and propaganda. This evil figure is Che Guevara. I assume you clicked on this video knowing who Che Guevara is, but if you don't, I'll give you a brief rundown. Che Guevara rose to prominence and power after he aided Fidel Castro in a communist revolution in Cuba. From there, he tried to spark revolution in other countries, but all of which failed. He is also known from his, in quotations, impressive military tactics utilizing guerrilla warfare. Before I tell you why this man should not be worshipped, we should figure out why people worship him in the first place. Guevara is considered to be a figure that represents hope to those who want to see change. He was also very critical of capitalism in America in specific, which is a popular idea in today's society, especially by people who have only ever lived in America and have no idea what it's like to live under a repressive government. Speaking of repressive governments, let's look at all the hopeful change that came to Cuba after Guevara aided an extremely bloody revolution to overthrow the previous government. So you know the gulags of the Soviet Union and the concentration camps of Nazi Germany? Yep, Cuba had those too. Guevara even served as the governor for one of these camps for several months. Fun fact, these camps used the slogan, "Work will make you men," which was heavily influenced by the slogan Nazis used for their concentration camps, "Work will set you free." They weren't even trying to cover that up. Many thousands of people died at these camps. They were beaten mercilessly, tortured, raped, and most of all, executed. While Che may not have been the one committing these acts directly, it was no secret that he loved killing. He even went as far to describe in his diary in graphic detail how one time he pulled out a pistol and shot a peasant in the head in front of many other people. Guevara was given the roles of finance minister and president of the National Bank after the commies took over. He decided that workers' rights were for pussies and demanded people work for hours upon hours every day or else their pay would be cut. Obviously, people were like, yeah, no, fuck this, and productivity dropped rapidly. This got so bad that Cuba was having to be given money from the USSR constantly, and in return they let the Soviets keep their missiles in Cuba. So essentially, Guevara is to blame for the Cuban Missile Crisis. Speaking of the Cuban Missile Crisis, once that issue was resolved and everything ended well for both parties involved, Guevara was furious. He believed that the Soviets should have started sending missiles our way. The other thing I mentioned that inspired people was his military tactics. Oh boy. While I will admit that some of his acts in the Cuban Revolution were militarily brilliant, all of his revolutionary escapades afterwards ended atrociously. Most specifically, I will be referencing his escapades in the Congo and Bolivia. He was so arrogant that he never took advice from others. He had zero grasp of supply and logics. This can be proven because when he was captured in Bolivia, he and his group had been cut off from resupply routes, and when he was found, he was basically starved, and he really didn't actually give a shit about those he was fighting for. Let me touch a little bit more on that last point. So most people who cherish Che Guevara consider themselves to align left on the political spectrum. This is because communism is an extremely far-left ideology. The two things today's left gets the most upset about are racism and homophobia, and boy did Che Guevara love his fair share of both of those. Whenever his escapades failed, he just blamed those native to whatever country he was fighting for. He talked so much shit about those in the Congo and Bolivia that tension arose between the two groups supposedly on the same size, which guaranteed their failure. He criticized Mexicans, black Cubans, Congolese, Bolivians, and the list goes on and on. Many people excuse this by saying he was just a product of his time, but I call bullshit. Let's look at another historical figure of the time that sparked change, Martin Luther King Jr. MLK helped get African Americans rights. He demanded we lived up to the principle of our country that all men are created equal, and he succeeded through nonviolent civil disobedience. What's the worst thing MLK did? He cheated on his wife a lot, but that's about it. I mentioned homophobia, and this is probably the worst part. Guevara openly hated homosexuals, and they were all sent to collective work camps where he endured conditions even worse than the rest of the prisoners. They were always last to get meals and were beaten even over the slightest infractions. So is this murderous, racist homophobe who is as incompetent as he is evil a symbol of hope? I don't think so. As you can tell, I'm pretty sick today, and you can hear it in my voice, and that's why I probably fucked up a lot while recording this. So give me the benefit of the doubt, and that's why it sounds like I got a dick in my throat the whole time. Thanks, guys.